extraordinaire, and then she will introduce our guests, speakers. So, can I have a round of applause for Makita, please?
Hello everyone. I've seen that film a few times now for my research, and I have to say every time I watch it, I love it a little bit more, but I also cannot believe how much has happened to our world and the fashion world since 2017. Sometimes I feel like we have come so far, which is hard because then things make you suddenly feel like we're going backwards. So it's going to be really good to talk to the ladies today and really talk about where we're at and how much has happened and what an incredible thing they did when people had no idea what they were talking about. I just think it's so brilliant. So please welcome Becky and Amy. There you go. There you go. Do you like panels like this, everyone? Into things like this?
Love it.
Love it, absolutely. Honestly, such a beautifully made film, I have to say, and I love that it feels so feature filmy. It really does. How do you feel with everyone seeing it now? Because it's something you started so long ago. How does it feel to show it to people now?
It's completely surreal, because as I said at the beginning, we worked on this for 5 years. And we started filming in 2017, which, as you said, Makina, was a completely different world in every way. So yeah, to have it finally come out, it's a surreal moment. The reactions so far have been, amazing. She was nominated for BIFA.
Oh my God, that's fantastic!
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, come on. Best debut director, so that was completely unexpected, and yeah, the response has been incredible. So it is really cool to finally have it out after all that time.
And now that we're in 2023, what does sustainability look like in fashion and in film today for you guys?
Shall I?
It's quite a big question.
Film?
To be fair.
Oh gosh, film is, so there is a lot of momentum in film, and there's an organization called Albert. So a lot of films are getting Albert certified now, including big Hollywood blockbusters. I think Jurassic Park, the latest, is Albert certified. So there's a list of requirements that you have to hit to get an Albert certification, and so that is happening. One of the organizations that funded our film, Doc Society, is very, very focused on green filmmaking and has a lot of resources for filmmakers. So there is a lot happening in the film space.
That's good. I had no idea about that. That's really great.
Yeah.
And Amy, how do you even answer the question about how much fashion has changed?
Obviously, you all saw the film, and from when we started, it was nothing apart from a couple of brands, and now I think everybody's talking about it. I guess the biggest question mark hanging over all of it is how much of it is real, how much of it is greenwashing. So I think it's amazing we've got to the point where I think any brand feels like they have to talk about it, and if they're not talking about it, they're going to lose out and they're going to lose customers. I guess the problem we're facing now is kind of who to trust and who to believe, And I kind of hope that this film obviously shows how hard we've worked on it, but more importantly kind of shows the viewer how complex it is, and therefore what to kind of look out for when looking for other brands.
Because people still lie.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable, isn't it? Amy, I wanted to talk about when you moved to the land in Lancashire, and what I loved the most, something I've learned just in my personal life, is like getting closer to yourself, and who you really are and where you're from always takes you to quite extraordinary places. And I was interested in the fact that you thought they were quite opposing, where you were from and fashion. How does it feel now in the kind of bringing those two things together? Do you feel a lot more powerful in your role in this weird world we call fashion?
Yeah, completely. People often talk about authenticity, and I guess when I was younger I didn't really understand that so much. I knew what the word meant, but I didn't really understand how to apply that to me. I just looked at fashion and what everybody else was doing, and where I felt like I needed to fit in, and I had to fit into schedules, and London Fashion Week and what other brands were doing, and
and to feel fashionable.
Not really. But yeah, I did. I felt like, the truth is I felt like I needed a specific home, I needed a specific look, I needed to Instagram my life in this very glossy way if I wanted to compete with other creative directors out there, and the truth is some of that was authentic. I am creative, but some of it wasn't, and I think the moment I went on this journey, and actually what is so incredible for me and empowering watching this film back, the way Becky's captured that, is I'm proud of all that now. And when I was a kid, that was the opposite that I was, you know.
Yes. Yeah, get closer to oneself.
And actually I've been much more successful as a business and on my own profile since I've been authentic.
Exactly.
Because it comes out in just this completely natural way that it didn't before.
Yeah, and Chloe says something really important about sometimes people are like, where do I even start? And I think sometimes even the word sustainability can feel quite overwhelming and intimidating. I know I've found it intimidating, although I love secondhand clothes. So how do people, do you think, integrate this into their lives in a personal way, just being more aware and really looking at how they can make that change?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there are so many ways to integrate sustainability into our lives. In terms of fashion specifically, you know, one of the top tips is just to buy less and better. And I got this 3-question strategy from Amy, which is the next time you're thinking about buying something, you ask yourself, do I really need this? Do I really want this? And am I going to keep it for years to come? And that goes for a fashion item or anything. And I just think that's a wonderful way for us to all collectively reduce our impact and be happier with what we have.
How do you think the fashion industry got to a point where it can literally not trace back its supply chains? Because I think that was something I found quite shocking, that people were like, oh, not sure. I did not know that it could be like that.
You can see there how hard it is, and actually, you know, what we've achieved there, we try and achieve that on all of our fibres, and it's just sometimes completely not possible, you know. It's very complicated. I guess there's a lot of pieces to it, but I guess once we became so international was when it became more and more complicated. So, you know, there was very much like industries and specific locations before, but once that, you know, once kind of we took that global, it got watered down like even more. Sorry, I'm baby crying. It's like all my motherly instincts just like I think he needs to sleep.
Or boo, come on.
Or boobs, yeah. I think it's just, you know, once upon a time you bought a fabric from Italy, which was kind of historically where you'd get them from. Now if you buy a fabric from Italy, the chances are it probably wasn't even woven in Italy. It was probably that they've just bought it in from China, and then where it was spun and grown, etc. You know, and it just, I guess it's lost in translation. There's just so many elements to it, and it's just become so fractured, and it's really complicated.
Yeah. Becky, can we talk about some of the benefits of addressing this and trying to be more aware of these things, not just for us, but for brands, for huge brands? Because actually what Amy was saying, I totally know what you mean, that you have to keep up, but also I think you look outdated if you're not talking about this anymore as a brand.
Yeah, so benefits for brands. You know, we're talking a lot internally about legislation right now on our team, and we're actually launching an impact campaign with Together Films, and one of the goals of that is to get this film in front of government and influence policy. So one of the benefits is that there are policy developments happening in the EU and in the US, and they're eventually going to affect all fashion brands. So it would behoove you as a fashion brand to familiarize yourself with the regulations that are coming our way, which include extended producer responsibility, so being responsible for the entire life cycle of your product, from raw material extraction through to managing the waste of your product, the materials being used, so more sustainable and recycled and recyclable materials. I mean, there's all kinds of regulations that will eventually, I mean, in the EU, they're well on their way, and it may well be policy by 2025, 2026. So yeah, I mean, obviously from an ethical, moral, sustainable perspective, we should all be doing this, but there's also going to be regulations that will force everyone to do it.
And legislations coming in?
Yes, so in the EU, I think it's called, oh gosh, I forget the name of it, but it's part of the EU Green New Deal. And yeah, there's a very robust set of regulations that they want to roll out across the EU's 27 countries. And then in the US, there's something called the Fashion Act that would affect every fashion brand doing business with New York with a turnover of over 100 million. So that's pretty much every major fashion brand, and it would require them to map 75% of their supply chain and report on water impact, climate impact, median wages of their labor force across their supply chain. So these are very robust pieces of legislation that need to be in place, but that will also, involve a lot of work at the front end for brands. Hopefully, once you do the work, it's just like an updating process yearly.
Yeah, but I mean, this is insane to think this is like actually being put as a proper government legislation, and 5 years ago it was just you, Chloe, and Amy walking
No,
around
it's
Europe,
absolutely
right?
mind-blowing because actually it coincided, so we premiered at Tribeca in New York last June, and that coincided with the announcement, with the release of the Fashion Act. And we never in a million years would have imagined in 2017 that this kind of legislation was being proposed. It's absolutely incredible.
So what are some of the things that you guys hope people are thinking about when they watch Fashion Reimagined?
I guess first and foremost, for most people watching this, they're not, even people that have watched it, they're in fashion, that have already seen it, have said to me, I just didn't realise. So people that think they know supply chains, don't know supply chains, and then I guess for people that maybe just shop fashion and don't really understand the insides of the industry, I think it's quite kind of eye-opening how complex it is. So I think that will be a nice piece of information for everybody to kind of take on board when they're purchasing.
Yeah.
But also, my favourite part of the film, which I think you edited and directed beautifully, was the personal story that you wove into the film, because I think it's hopeful, and I think that's so important. A lot of these documentaries tell you about a problem, and they, I watched these seriously and suddenly thought, oh my god, I can never eat another piece of fish again, and it feels quite daunting, and those documentaries are really important. But I like the way you've edited this, because at the end it's sort of like, if this kid from the caravan can do it, I can do it too, and whether that's just your desire to be a designer or where you want to be in your career, or whether that's in sustainability, I just like the hopefulness of it, and that's what I hope people will take away.
I'm so happy you said that, because I was like looking at my questions, I was like, oh god, it's all getting a bit bleak, because my last question is also hopeful. What kind of things are happening that are galvanising and positive in this space at the moment, and make you guys really realise the work you've done and did in this film?
Yeah, so there is a positive side for sure. I am personally really excited about all of the businesses that are popping up in this circular space. There's some wonderful, really amazing businesses, as well as brands that are launching like resale platforms on their websites, or partnering with third-party rental companies. And you guys partner with Curate and Rotate, which does your resale. There's amazing stuff happening in the children's space. So Amy and I both buy a lot of our children's clothes from Dot, which is a children's resale platform. I was renting my son's clothes from Bundley, another amazing company in this space. There's Vestiaire for resale designer. And I just learned recently that the resale market is accelerating at an unprecedented pace, and will outpace the rate of fast fashion by 2030. Which is absolutely incredible, and is a huge part of what needs to happen. Is a much bigger market share of fashion needs to be circular for us to cut our emissions in half.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think we live in a world which was built very linear by a lot of men, but we have this business model of profit and loss. That's the way we see it. We just see how much we bring in, how much we turn over, how much profit's there at the end of the day. And actually, I think, looking into this conversation, in general, in circularity, how can you monetize being a better business? Like, actually, how can you turn being better into something that's financially viable, but also not just thinking about money as pure profit, but actually what you can achieve with that? Like, is it not nicer to say, this is the money we've made and look what we're going to do with it? Like, is it about also seeing the value of what we see as a transaction? Like, is a transaction more powerful if it's giving back to something else? And I think re-looking at our businesses and bringing empathy and...
It takes a woman, basically.
Yeah, basically bringing women into the world. Yeah, that's where I'm going with this, we're trying to repeat it. But just rethinking the way we do our business, and rethinking what currency even is. And I think there's space to actually create viable, healthy businesses, and actually make change for the better.
Yeah, and thank you for making this one, because also I think it really changed my way of what a powerful woman in the fashion industry can look like and be doing and kind of care about. So that felt really exciting for me.
Also,
honestly.
just to say as well, you know, you see me in that film and that's my story and how kind of passionate and committed I am, but that film wouldn't be made if Becky wasn't exactly the same person. So I think, you know, we had to have two heroines of the story.
Yes.
Making an independent film, as I've learned, and you're in it, is as complicated as everything that I just embarked on. So I think, you know, there's two kind of heroines for that film.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
It was beautiful teamwork, guys. Thank
Well
you
done.
for making the film. It's absolutely beautiful. And we'll have a round of applause for Fashion Reimagined. And if anyone would like to start asking a question, are you waving your hands to say hi, or is that a question?
That's fine.
All right, that's just a hi. Okay.
Producer Lindsay at the back.
Hello.
Production manager Sabrina.
Yes, another important member of the team. Yeah, is there anything that anyone would like to ask Becky or Amy about the future and about where we're at now in fashion? You don't have to be shy. I can make Sophie ask one. Thank you. Thank you.
Did Stella McCartney was she ever any support to you? Was she just growing up? She was the only one that I knew of that living a lot of us just knew of, who was doing something differently. And I'm ashamed to say, when I was a kid, I thought I was, you know, just a bit hippie, a bit smart. Yeah, it wasn't cool, and now it's everything. I was just wondering if.
Well, actually, I've met her once, but I don't know her actually. But Mary, her sister, is a good friend, so maybe I should make that more of a thing.
Oh yeah, totally. Maybe you should be friends with Stella. But that was interesting at the beginning when you said that the only brands that were sort of doing this at the time were People Tree and Catherine. Yeah.
And Catherine was also much more kind of political and kind of ethical. People Tree were environmental and ethical too. But I mean, People Tree back then, I mean, I'm sure it's changed now, but back then, I mean, it really was quite hippie. And it was like, I don't know where it was, but geographically, you know, it's kind of on the coast somewhere, beautiful and idyllic. But Catherine was the only person in London kind of doing anything similar to that. And she was tiny business. I mean, I couldn't even imagine how many people were employed in her company to get a job there, you know. So it was, and I remember going to see, I think it was the Ethical Fashion Forum, something. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was the first place that was kind of, you know, imagine Future Fashion Expo, I don't know if you know that, but Sustainable Angle, kind of these major operations now which are all about sourcing and sustainability. You know, the one I went to when I just graduated was like someone's little office and like a bit of hemp was given to me, you know. And it really was, and like even, you know, 6 years ago it was bad, but 12 years ago, you know, it was shocking.
I do remember obviously when Stella started not using leather, and that was like a big deal at the time. And I suppose that was kind of her putting her foot in this world in one way, and being a pioneer of it in some way. But we had still so far to go.
Yeah, and I think actually even for Stella, I don't think any of us had realised the environmental footprint. Like even when I was studying, it was ethical. It was we knew about sweatshops, but I think it came later to all of us. This like huge piece of information on how treacherous environmentally the industry was. So I think we all kind of learned quite quickly, and then brands like Stella and ourselves did something about it quickly. And I guess, you know, people are doing it now because they want to, and some are doing it because they have to.
Yes.